My name is Josephine Carter. I'm 38 years old, and the moment my relationship ended didn't come with shouting or anything dramatic enough to make sense of it. It came quietly. Through a video that should never have existed. I work as a civil engineer focused on municipal road projects. I live in Chicago, and most of my weeks run on early mornings, site visits, and long stretches reviewing plans at my desk. My routine is steady, predictable. I leave home around 7 o'clock, spend the day dealing with contractors and inspections across the city, and I'm usually back before dinner unless something falls behind schedule. I've always preferred that kind of structure. Clear problems, clear solutions. At home, things were less precise. My boyfriend, Daniel Hayes, is 36. He works part-time, managing a small boutique not far from downtown. We've been together for 8 years, living together for 6. Daniel has a daughter, Lily, from a previous relationship. She's 10 now, and I've been in her life since she was 4. We all live together in a small house on the northwest side of Chicago. I bought it 3 years before we met. Over time, it became ours in routine, if not in ownership. For the most part, I tried to keep things stable. Daniel has always had a sharp personality. I noticed it early on. He can be sarcastic, impatient, quick to criticize. At first, I thought it came from stress. Raising Lily mostly on his own before I met him, juggling work, trying to keep everything afloat. But after a few years, I realized it wasn't temporary. It was just who he was. The issue wasn't occasional arguments. Everyone has those. The issue was how easily everything turned into one. My work schedule, the way I organized the house, the fact that I preferred quiet weekends instead of constant plans. I didn't ignore it. When something crossed a line, I addressed it directly. I made it clear that constant disrespect wasn't something I would tolerate in my own home. Usually he'd pull back for a while. And despite everything, Lily and I got along well. I drove her to school, helped with homework, showed up to events when Daniel was busy. There was a rhythm to it. Not perfect, but functional. So going into my 38th birthday last fall, I thought things were stable. Not ideal, but stable. That day started like any other. Work was busy but manageable. A couple of inspections, a contractor meeting, then paperwork back at the office. Around lunch, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. It contained a single video file. At first, I assumed it was spam. Then I opened it. The video started immediately. It was filmed in what looked like a living room. The camera shook slightly at first, like whoever recorded it hadn't planned to. Then the frame settled. Daniel was sitting on a couch. That alone made me pause. He was supposed to be at work. His shift usually ran until 5. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach drop. Next to him was a woman I recognized almost instantly from old photos. His ex-girlfriend, Lily's biological mother. Her name is Vanessa. She had been mostly absent for years. From everything Daniel told me, she drifted in and out of cities, jobs, responsibilities. Rarely stayed long, rarely showed up. I had met her exactly once at a school event years ago. She barely acknowledged me before leaving early. But in that video, she looked comfortable. Too comfortable. They were sitting close, not touching directly, but close enough that the space between them felt intentional. Familiar. Like that distance had been crossed before. The video ran for maybe 20 seconds before either of them noticed they were being filmed. And then I heard Lily's voice behind the camera. Bright, excited, almost laughing. She said something that made me pause the video immediately. She said she wished Vanessa was her real mom again. Not just her mom, her real mom. For a moment, I just sat there in my office chair, staring at my phone. There are moments where your brain refuses to process what it's seeing, where logic tries to step in before emotion can catch up. That's where I went first. Maybe this was old. Maybe someone sent me something from years ago. Maybe Daniel had run into her recently, and Lily just got emotional. All of those explanations crossed my mind in less than 30 seconds. Then I played the video again, and the second time I noticed 2 details that removed most of the doubt. The first was Daniel's outfit. He was wearing the exact same shirt he had left the house in that morning. The second was the television behind them. Local news. Date in the corner. Today, my birthday. Once I saw that, the situation stopped being theoretical. It was happening in real time. I replayed the video a third time. Slower. This time I wasn't reacting. I was observing. Daniel leaned slightly toward Vanessa. Not enough to be obvious, but enough that it didn't look accidental. Her shoulder angled toward him. Their posture matched in a way that suggested familiarity, not distance. Lily's voice came again from behind the camera. She sounded happy, like she had been waiting for that moment. She said something about it being the best birthday surprise ever. For a second, I didn't understand. Then it clicked. They weren't talking about my birthday. They were talking about Vanessa's. The video ended shortly after. Vanessa noticed the phone, asked Lily what she was doing. Lily laughed and said she was sending it to someone. Then the clip cut off. I checked the message again. Unknown number, no name, no explanation. Just the video. I sat there for a few minutes thinking through what I actually knew. Daniel told me he was at work. The video showed him at Vanessa's apartment. Lily was there, comfortable, excited. And someone, most likely Lily, had sent that video directly to me, not by accident, intentionally. I texted Daniel once. Kept it simple. I asked where he was. His reply came 3 minutes later. He said he was at work, that it was slow. At that point, I already knew that was a lie. So instead of arguing over text, I closed the conversation and opened the video again. There was one more detail I needed to confirm. I zoomed in on the background, and that's when I recognized the apartment. At first, it felt familiar without context. Beige walls, dark couch, cheap TV stand. Then I remembered. 2 years earlier, Daniel had shown me pictures from one of Lily's old birthday parties. Vanessa had shown up that time. Late, briefly, then left. Those photos were taken in that exact same living room, Vanessa's apartment, which meant this wasn't a random meeting. Daniel had gone directly there. I leaned back in my chair and separated facts from assumptions. Fact 1, he lied about being at work. Fact 2, he was at his ex-girlfriend's apartment. Fact 3, his daughter was comfortable enough to film them like that. Fact 4, the video was sent to me on purpose. That was enough. I didn't call him again. I finished the rest of my workday. Not because I was calm, but because reacting immediately wouldn't change anything. Driving across the city without a plan would just create noise. And I didn't want noise. I wanted clarity. Around 5:30, Daniel texted me. Said he was leaving work. Asked what I wanted for dinner. Casual, normal, like nothing had happened. That told me something important. He didn't think I knew. I replied with one sentence. Told him I'd grab something on the way home. Then I drove back like any normal evening. But before I walked inside, I watched the video one more time. This time I focused on his face. Not guilt, not hesitation, comfort. That was the part I couldn't ignore. When I walked into the house, Daniel was already in the kitchen, moving around like it was a normal weekday. Lily sat at the table doing homework. Daniel looked up, smiled. Happy birthday. Nothing in his tone suggested he had spent the afternoon somewhere else. That level of normal clarified everything. Whatever was happening, it wasn't new. I set my keys down by the door and greeted Lily first. She said happy birthday without looking up from her notebook. Her voice was light, distracted, like this was just another evening. Normal. Everything about it was normal. That was the part that felt the most unnatural. Daniel asked what I wanted for dinner. I told him anything simple was fine. He nodded, already turning back toward the stove, like the question had just been part of routine, not something meant to mark the day. The entire exchange lasted less than 30 seconds. Then I went upstairs and changed out of my work clothes. Inside the bedroom, I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed for a moment. My phone was still in my hand. The video was still there. I didn't need to watch it again. But I did. Not for confirmation, for precision. I needed to decide how this conversation was going to happen before I walked back downstairs. Walking into the kitchen and reacting emotionally would turn it into an argument. And arguments, blur details. I didn't want blurred details. I wanted everything clear. The biggest question in my mind wasn't what I saw. It was how long it had been happening. According to Daniel, Vanessa barely existed in their lives anymore. That was the version I had been given for years. Unreliable, inconsistent, someone who drifted in and out without warning. But the video didn't match that. Lily didn't look surprised to be there. Daniel didn't look uncomfortable. Vanessa didn't look like someone re-entering a situation after years away. They all looked settled. That kind of comfort doesn't come from one unexpected visit. It comes from repetition, from time. After a few minutes, I stood up and went back downstairs. Dinner was already on the table. Pasta, a bottle of wine opened, plates set. Daniel slid a glass toward me as I sat down. We ate in silence for the first few minutes, the kind of silence that feels ordinary if you don't know what's underneath it. Lily focused on her food. Daniel made a comment about something at the boutique. Inventory, a customer, something minor. I nodded once. Then after about 10 minutes, I set my fork down and reached for my phone. I didn't say anything before I played the video. I just placed the phone in the center of the table and pressed play. The sound filled the room. Lily's voice. Vanessa's living room. Daniel sitting on that couch. For a second, no one moved. Then Lily froze. Completely. Her fork hovered halfway to her plate, then slowly lowered. Daniel's expression changed. Not to shock, not to panic. To irritation. That was the first thing I noticed. Not guilt, not confusion, annoyance. The video ended, and the room went quiet. Not tense, not chaotic, just still. Lily stared down at the table like her homework had suddenly become the most important thing in the world. Daniel leaned back in his chair slightly, eyes still on the phone. Then he exhaled, a slow, controlled breath. "Where did you get that?" he asked. His tone wasn't defensive. It was inconvenienced, like I had interrupted something. "I received it this afternoon," I said. Nothing more. No accusation. No raised voice. Just a statement. His eyes shifted immediately to Lily. She didn't look up, didn't say anything. He muttered something under his breath, barely audible, and shook his head slightly before looking back at me. "It's not what it looks like," he said. I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear exactly how he planned to explain it. He straightened slightly in his chair, like he was organizing his version of events in real time. "Vanessa reached out recently," he said. "She wanted to see Lily more. We've been meeting up so they can spend time together." His delivery was smooth, practiced, like he had already said it before. "Today's her birthday," he added. "Lily wanted to surprise her, that's all." That's all. He said it like that should close the conversation, like the explanation itself was enough. The problem wasn't just what he said. It was how he said it. The tone. Flat. Slightly irritated. Like the real issue wasn't what happened. It was that I had evidence of it. I nodded once, then asked one question. "Why did you tell me you were at work?" His eyes rolled almost immediately. A small movement, but deliberate. "Because I knew you'd overreact," he said. There was no pause, no hesitation, just a direct answer. That was the moment the conversation shifted, because that wasn't an explanation. That was justification. I held his gaze for a second longer. "How long has this been happening?" I asked. This time he hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "A few weeks," he said. The answer came quickly after that pause, like he was correcting himself mid-thought. "A few weeks." I didn't respond right away, because we both knew that wasn't true. You don't reach that level of comfort in a few casual meetups. Not with that body language, not with that familiarity. Before I could say anything else, Lily spoke. "It's not a big deal," she said, her voice sharper now. "Mom's fun to be around." "Mom!" Not Vanessa. "Mom!" I turned my head slightly to look at her. She finally looked up. There was no hesitation in her expression. No guilt. Just irritation. Like I was the one creating a problem where there shouldn't be one. "She's nicer," Lily added, "and she actually wants to spend time with me." The words landed exactly the way they sounded. Direct. Unfiltered. Then she said the thing that made everything else irrelevant. "I wish she lived with us instead," she said. "I wish she was my mom again." The room didn't just go quiet. It shifted. Completely. There are moments where something settles into place so clearly that there's nothing left to interpret. That was one of them. I looked at her for a few seconds, waiting. Not for her to take it back, but to see if she would. She didn't. Daniel immediately cut in. "Lily, stop," he said, his tone sharp now. But it wasn't correction. It was timing. He wasn't addressing what she said. He was trying to control when she said it. "She's just excited," he added quickly, turning back to me. "Kids say things. You're taking this too seriously." Too seriously. I sat there for another second. Then I leaned back slightly in my chair. And in that moment, everything became simple. Not easy. Simple. This wasn't about one afternoon, or one lie, or one conversation. This was about a pattern that had already replaced me in my own home. And the only reason I was just seeing it now was because someone decided to show me. I pushed my chair back. The sound of it against the floor cut through the silence. Daniel frowned slightly. "What are you doing?" he asked. "We need to talk," I said. My voice stayed even, controlled. "Living room." He exhaled sharply, already annoyed, but stood up anyway. I walked out first. Didn't look back to see if he was following. I already knew he would, because for the first time that evening, the situation wasn't something he could dismiss. And he knew it. I walked into the living room and stopped near the center, giving myself just enough space to think clearly before he stepped in behind me. Daniel followed a few seconds later, slower this time, like he was already preparing for an argument he assumed he could control. I didn't sit down. Neither did he. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he let out a short breath, shaking his head slightly. "You're seriously blowing this out of proportion," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him. Not the version I had been used to, not the version I had adjusted around for years. Just him, standing there, irritated, still convinced this was something he could talk his way out of. "I've already made a decision," I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I'm ending this. You need to pack your things." The words landed between us without hesitation. For a second, he didn't react. Not because he didn't hear me, but because he was waiting for the part where I softened it, where I explained, where I gave him room to negotiate. When that part didn't come, his expression shifted from confusion to anger. "You're ending what?" he asked. "Over that?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence sit there long enough that he had to feel it. Then I spoke again. "You lied about where you were," I said. "You were at Vanessa's apartment, sitting there like it was normal, and your daughter just told me she wants her back in this house." I paused. "That's not a misunderstanding." His jaw tightened. "That doesn't mean anything is happening," he said quickly. "You're jumping to conclusions." "I'm not interested in debating what it means," I replied. That was the difference. He wanted to argue interpretation. I was focused on facts. He took a step closer. "You're seriously going to throw away 8 years because Lily said something stupid?" he said. "No," I said calmly. "I'm ending it because of what led to her saying it." That stopped him for half a second. "Not enough to change anything." "Just enough to register." "You're punishing her for having a mother," he snapped. "I'm not punishing anyone," I said. "I'm removing myself from a situation that no longer makes sense." He laughed once, short, disbelieving. "You think you can just decide that?" he said. "Yes," I answered. That was when I saw it. The exact moment he realized I wasn't arguing. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't waiting for his version of things. I had already moved past that. "This is my house," I continued. "I bought it before we met. I never added anyone else to it. Legally, this is straightforward." His expression hardened. "So what, you're just kicking us out?" he asked. "I'm telling you to pack what you need for the next few days," I said, "and find somewhere else to stay." The words didn't come with emotion. That was what made them final. "You can't be serious," he said. "I am." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the room before turning back to me. "This is insane," he said. "You don't end a relationship like this. You talk about it. You fix it." "There's nothing to fix," I said. That was the part he couldn't accept. Because fixing something implies both people still want it. And I didn't. Not anymore. "You're overreacting," he said again, louder now. "Nothing happened. We met so Lily could see her mom. That's it." "And you lied about it," I replied. "I lied because I knew you'd act like this," he shot back. There it was again. The justification. Not regret. Not accountability. Just explanation wrapped in blame. I held his gaze. "That's exactly why this is over," I said. He stared at me, trying to find an opening. Something to push against. But there wasn't one. Because I wasn't leaving space for it. "What do you expect me to do tonight?" he asked finally. "Pack," I said. Josephine." "Pack," I repeated. This time I didn't raise my voice. But I didn't soften it either. He stood there for a few seconds longer, looking at me like he was still waiting for something to shift, for me to hesitate, to reconsider. I didn't. Eventually he turned and walked upstairs. No agreement, no resolution, just movement. I stayed where I was, listening, drawers opening, closet doors sliding, the sound of bags being pulled out. At one point, something hit the wall hard enough to echo through the house. I didn't react, because none of that changed anything. About 20 minutes later, Lily came downstairs, backpack over her shoulder. She stopped near the bottom of the stairs and looked at me. Waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. An apology. A change of mind. A reaction. I didn't give her one. "Make sure you have everything for school tomorrow," I said. My voice stayed even. Practical. She frowned slightly. Not upset. Confused. Like the outcome didn't match what she expected. Then she nodded once and walked toward the door. Daniel came down a few minutes later with 2 bags and his keys in his hand. He stopped in the doorway, turning back toward me. "This is a mistake," he said. Not loud. Not emotional. Just certain. I looked at him. "You should probably go to Vanessa's," I said. "You already seem comfortable there." For the first time since the conversation started, he didn't have a response. He just stared at me for a second, then turned and walked out. The door closed behind them. And just like that, the house went quiet. Completely. I stood there in the hallway for a moment, not moving, not thinking, just noticing the absence. No footsteps upstairs, no voices, no background noise from the kitchen, just silence. I walked through the house once. Kitchen, living room, upstairs hallway. Everything looked exactly the same as it had that morning. But it wasn't, because the version of it that included them was gone. I went back downstairs and sat at the kitchen table. My phone was still there. 3 messages, all from Daniel. The first said I was acting insane. The second said Lily didn't understand why she had to leave. The third was longer. Complaints, frustration, embarrassment. None of them mentioned the video. None of them mentioned Vanessa. That detail mattered, because it meant he still thought this was something he could argue back into normal. I wasn't interested in that. So I handled the practical things first. I blocked his number. Then every app we used, messages, calls, social media. It took less than 2 minutes. When I was done, I set my phone down and sat there for a second, just long enough to confirm something for myself. The relationship had ended earlier that day. I just hadn't said it out loud until now. I opened my email and sent one message to my lawyer. Short, direct. I needed to start the process as soon as possible. Then I turned my phone face down on the table. And for the first time since I watched that video, I stopped thinking about him entirely. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I couldn't sleep, but because the house was completely quiet. No movement upstairs. No doors opening and closing. No sound of someone getting ready for the day. No low hum of conversation drifting through the hallway. Just silence. I lay there for a few seconds, staring at the ceiling, letting that quiet settle into something real. Then I got up, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and started organizing what needed to happen next. Not emotionally, logically. The first thing was legal. My lawyer responded around 8. I explained the situation in a few sentences, kept it factual, no unnecessary detail, no emotion. He told me we could begin the paperwork that week. That was enough. The second thing was access. Daniel still had a key. That wasn't complicated. I called a locksmith and scheduled a lock change for that afternoon. No urgency in my voice, no explanation needed, just a service request. After that, I got ready for work like any other day. Same routine, same time, same drive. The city didn't look different. Traffic moved the same. People crossed streets like they always did. Construction sites ran on schedule. Nothing around me reflected what had changed, and I preferred it that way. At work, I moved through the day without distraction. Meetings, inspections, emails. Structured. Predictable. Around lunch, I noticed a few missed calls from unknown numbers. I didn't need to answer to know who it was. Daniel. He had realized he was blocked, so he adapted. Different numbers. Same intention. I ignored all of them. Later that afternoon, one of our mutual friends texted me. Said Daniel had been telling people I kicked him and Lily out over nothing. I read the message once, then put my phone down. I didn't respond, because anyone who actually knew me knew I don't make decisions like that without a reason, and anyone who didn't wasn't relevant. When I got home, the locksmith had already been there. New locks, new keys. Simple, final. I walked inside, closed the door behind me, and for a second, I just stood there again. Not because I was unsure, but because the space felt different. Not empty, not sad, just mine. Completely. I set my bag down and walked into the kitchen. Everything was exactly where I had left it. Clean, ordered, unchanged. Except for one thing. There was no underlying tension anymore. No background noise of unresolved conversations. No anticipation of the next argument. Just quiet. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter. And for the first time since everything happened, I let myself think about it. Not the details, not the video, just the outcome. On my birthday, I received proof that the life I thought I had didn't exist the way I believed it did. Daniel wasn't where he said he was. He was somewhere else, with someone he claimed didn't matter anymore. And his daughter, the child I had helped raise for 6 years, didn't see me as permanent. She saw me as temporary, replaceable. And the moment she thought she had the option, she chose it. There wasn't anything complicated about that. It didn't need interpretation. It didn't need discussion. It just needed a decision. And I made it. That same day, I removed both of them from my life. Not gradually, not emotionally, completely. My phone buzzed once on the counter. A message from another unknown number. I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. Because whatever it said wouldn't change anything. I pushed the phone slightly farther away and walked out of the kitchen, through the living room. Upstairs, every step felt the same. Steady, certain. That night, I went to bed at the same time I always did. No noise, no interruptions, no second guessing, just silence. And for the first time in years, it didn't feel empty. It felt right. I haven't spoken to Daniel since that night. I haven't seen Lily. I didn't follow up. I didn't check in. I didn't leave a door open, because some situations don't need closure. They just need clarity. And I already had it. On my birthday, I received a video. And by the end of that same day, I had my answer.